happen. But this technology is over 60 years old. Anyone with the money and the will, it seems, can obtain nuclear weapons. I don't think that, it's not that it's difficult, but, it's something that's not exactly new anymore. So I think that, and that once they do, I think then the world will have to, and I think the Iranians are counting on, the world will react as it did with India and Pakistan.
Jim Platt, Cambridge Energy Research. Good to see you here, Mark. On your last point, I think probably the most serious consequence of a nuclear-equipped Iran is nuclear proliferation throughout the Middle East. How do the Russians see that?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that they would agree with that they see that as a problem. They also see it as something that they can't necessarily control. Interestingly, when I visited Tehran a few years ago and said this to them, one of the consequences of Iran acquiring nuclear weapons is further proliferation. And this they denied. No. Well, why? Well, because those people couldn't possibly acquire nuclear weapons in Saudi Arabia or Egypt. In other words, there seems to be, they have a sense of themselves as really being superior to some of their neighbors, and that the neighbors simply don't have the capacity that they have to do this. Now, I have a feeling that they're wrong about this, but they don't seem to be focusing on this. Now, when I was there, at one point, I visited the sort of Foreign Policy Research Institute associated with the Expediency Council, Rafsanjani's outfit. And I was taken into a room. There was just one person, one man, no one else was there. And what he said, he was after an hour of saying we don't want nuclear weapons, he said, what we really want is what Japan has. In other words, the capacity to put one together, but not to actually have one unless we want to do that. And I've seen other references to this as well. And what they see is that you have nuclear weapons, people treat you more respectfully. And so they're focusing on that, not on the proliferation effects of them acquiring it, I'm afraid. Sort of like other countries who've acquired nuclear weapons.
Jay Mallory, I'm actually from the public policy program at George Mason. And my question is, do you have an idea of if the Obama administration would rather see a strong Russia-Iran strategic relationship vice an Iranian-China strategic relationship, if there's one that they would prefer to the other?
Mm-hmm. Well, I can't speak for the Obama administration. I just don't think we're going to see a strong Russian-Iranian strategic relationship. Sort of the history of their difficult relations is so long, so deep, and far longer than Iranian-American hostility, that we're just not going to see it happen. I think one of the most amusing things I happened to me was when I was in Tehran meeting at the Foreign Ministry with their Russia specialists talking about Iran. I thought I was at the Heritage Foundation. They were so anti-Russian. It's really quite, they really don't like these people. I mean, sort of the Iranian attitude toward Americans is love-hate. There are certain things they don't like about us, but, they all want to come here. They want green cards. They want education. There's nothing they like or respect about Russia. And that's I'm not saying that attitude is justified, but that's just how they feel. In other words, that what they feel is that through their whole history, Russians have dealt badly with them, that they've never dealt honestly with them, and therefore they can't expect anything. So, if there's any possibility, then it would be with China. And I have to admit, I haven't really studied Iranian-Chinese relations, but when I was in Tehran, one thing I did notice is that they're interested in this issue, and they see it as somehow something that might save them. On the other hand, they understand that there's a real power imbalance between China and Iran. certainly economically, that basically China just wants Iran for its resources and really nothing else. That's, in other words, not interested in Iran's development in any other way. They just want its resources, period.
I'll take one last question. You've been very patient over here.
Nana Sarfo, George Mason University, and Professor Katz, political science. Staying in the context of the viability of the non-proliferation regime, there, as you know, there's follow-on treaties is going on, and it's bogged down. The follow-on treaties start between Russia and the United States, being bogged down because of verification measures and so forth. Now there's factions in the U.S. and Russia that think we should go towards an isolationist nuclear policy, but for different reasons. Some Russian generals have said, we can't trust the U.S., let's just go with our own deployables, both carriers and warheads. And the United States also have interests that want to go towards an isolationist policy for different reasons, though. Mainly that Russia is no longer an enemy. The Cold War was based on so much mutual distrust. There isn't that much uncertainty anymore. But of course, the negotiating teams think differently. They're negotiating, so they want more predictability in forces, reduce uncertainty, and also strengthen the NPT. As far as it also has a disarmament policy. You're supposed to be disarming, so other people won't proliferate or try to gain these weapons. My question is, in the context of all this, do you think we're not that far away from an isolationist policy, probably post-START? START is going to basically renew the verification measures, and then hopefully hope for future negotiations down the road for actual cuts in deployables. And
so you're talking about sort of isolationism in the nuclear sense,
in the
basically.
nuclear sense, yes.
I don't think so, and I guess for two reasons. First of all, I don't think that Russia is interested in this. I think partly because I think the Russians understand quite clearly that their threat to sort of go unilateral, they don't want to put the resources into nuclear weapons. In other words, they see the U.S. as ahead, and if it really came to an arms race, well, they've been there before, they don't want to do that one again. Therefore, I think they will be petulant, they will be truculent, but in fact, these are sort of attention-getting measures more than anything. They want us to come to them and let's talk and everything. And as far as we're concerned, I think the Obama administration, I think they just have a deep commitment to arms control. I don't see them behaving in an isolationist manner. In fact, if anything, what worries the Russians is that statements, say, by President Obama, certainly by Senator Kerry, about going to a zero nuclear world, that these people are serious about this. And I don't think, for the Russians, with their conventional forces degraded, the nuclear is basically what they have. And so you want us to go to zero? I don't think so. So I don't think so. And at a certain point, the bilateral Russian-American strategic arms control, the lower we go, at some point we have to include the others. In other words, that the other arsenals become a factor. That this is, and if they don't play ball, the Chinese in particular, then I don't see how we can, keep on doing this by ourselves.
Right. Well, that's all the time we have today. Thank you so much, Professor Katz.
Well, thank you.